Hello and welcome back to The Hatch. I'm Sammy Roth.
And I'm Rosie Murphy, and this is the podcast where we talk about Lost.
This week we've got Season 3, Episode 2, The Glass Ballerina. It is a Sun episode.
We'll be talking about Jin and Sun, and also hearing a little bit more from Gene Higgins, a co-executive producer on Lost.
And I'm sure we're going to talk about some other characters too. So let's get into the episode.
So as always, we start each episode with our hot take on the episode we've just watched. Sammy, what's your hot take?
So I'm going to go off of our usual bit here of how much we love Sayid and say that I thought Sayid was pretty shitty this episode as my hot take.
Oh my gosh! That was mine!
Was it really?
Yes! That's shocking.
For context for our listeners, before we started recording, I said to Rosie, I'm worried we're going to have the same hot take this week, and Rosie didn't believe me.
No, I said no, I think mine is going to be pretty obscure, but apparently not. No, I wrote...
Apparently.
Okay, well, you explain your position.
I mean, I think that we just, we both love Sayid so much, and we're so shocked to see him lying to Jin and Sun this week, and hatching, I think, a pretty dangerous plan that I wouldn't have done if I were him.
Yeah,
I mean,
it seems kind of unnecessarily reckless, and he should also have been a better liar than this. Like,
yes,
Sun pegged him like no problem.
No, I agree. It was unfair to Sun and Jin, and frankly, even what I'm thinking is that his whole plan that he's going to draw the others out, even after you realize that he thinks Jack is captured, Jack and Kate and Sawyer. I don't think that's a smart plan. I mean, he doesn't know how many of them there are going to be.
Right, and he can't. He's with two people, one of whom he can't communicate with, and the other of whom, neither have demonstrated much battle experience or, the amount they've had on the island. Jin and Sun have not been involved in that.
And frankly, and Sun is pregnant.
Sayid doesn't know that.
Oh, that's true. I'd forgotten that. Are we sure he doesn't know that?
Pretty sure.
Yeah, I don't think they've told
I think
anyone.
The only person who knew was Michael.
Right. But, I mean, either way, just not great by Sayid all around.
No, a poor plan and poorly executed.
Yeah, and of course, unsurprisingly, the others come and fuck the whole thing up, and they go straight onto the boat, and there are too many of them, and they get the boat. I mean, what did you think was going to happen, Sayid?
Right. Yeah, leaving Sun on the boat also seems like a dumb move.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm a tactical strategist or anything, but it just seemed like not a good plan.
A very weak moment for our great love on Lost, Sayid.
I know. And I guess maybe it needed to happen this way so that so that what could happen in terms of moving the plot forward?
Oh, so are we going to play the writers here and try to come up with a better option that they could have used?
Yeah,
okay.
That's kind of what I'm doing in my head. I'm just trying to figure out what the writers were trying to do here. I feel about this subplot kind of the same way we felt last week about Kate and Ben having breakfast on the beach and having that conversation that felt kind of purposeless. So much of the first two seasons of Lost feel very, even if there are kind of plots within episodes that don't really go anywhere, but they're there for the purposes of revealing things about the characters, or for providing diversions, or for painting a picture of life on the island and proving that everything is not about, that there are many, many threads of things happening here. But
yeah,
I just don't. We have two episodes now where just something has happened that feels really purposeless, and I guess we know, that's kind of how the writers were feeling. They just didn't know where the show was going, and had to kind of fill time and stuff, but.
So I think part of the purpose of this from a plotting perspective is Sun shooting Colleen is important because Colleen is Danny Pickett's husband.
That's right.
And this is going to drive his anger later that he wants to kill Sawyer as revenge, which is pretty convoluted as these things go.
Right.
Especially since these are two super minor characters. And Danny Pickett I just find to be generically annoying.
He's not...
He's just kind of a generic asshole without anything else to him.
Right. He's not he doesn't seem to be part of the leadership structure. He doesn't seem to be doing anything within other society.
Yeah.
Besides just being kind of a brawny dude.
I feel like they could have just done the same thing with some scenario where the others, realize that Saeed has this boat. They see the original signal fires somehow, and they send their people out to get them. Maybe they find the dock, they dock the boat. It's late at night. They decide to stay the night before hiking back across. I guess they're going to take the boat back across the island, but I feel like there's a scenario here where the timeline is sped up, and it doesn't have to involve Saeed trying to draw them out.
Right.
So what else should we talk about this episode?
Okay, well, yeah, we have apparently exactly the same opinion on that subplot. So I guess, the meat of this episode, I think, happens in the flashbacks. It's a continued exploration of Sun and Jin's very complex marriage and family life. So in the flashback, of course, we start out with a kind of a little intro moment of Sun as a young girl who breaks this valuable glass ballerina, the title of the episode, and blames it on the maid, even though she knows the maid will get fired. And then that, I guess...
Frankly, I didn't understand the ballerina thing. Oh, sorry, are you going to explain it to me?
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess, I've been thinking, just, turning that over in my head, why is this the title of the episode? Why is this the thing that the writers chose to make... because they devote, it's not very much time, but it is this really, lovely shot of this piece of glass, turning around in the air, and then it, really leaves an impression. And I was trying to understand, what is the glass ballerina about? And why? What's the metaphor supposed to be? And I guess... I don't have a good... The answer is I don't have a good conclusion.
I was hoping you were going to tell me.
I'm going to just kind of think out loud and see where it goes.
Okay.
So what we see in the story of the glass ballerina is, Sun doing something wrong, and then doing, with full knowledge, allowing someone else to take the fall for it in a way that will be detrimental to them. And... I guess that is kind of what happens with Jay Lee.
That's interesting.
She has this affair with Jay. Her father finds out, unbeknownst to Sun, sends Jim to kill him, which is pretty dark. And unbeknownst to Jin, Mr. Pike is just...
Oh, gosh. Jay literally takes the fall like the ballerina.
Yeah, and, shatters, quote unquote, in a really dark way.
Wow.
And I think the implication of that might be Sun is to blame for that. Of course, Jin chooses not to kill Jay Lee, for reasons, what I assume is just Jin's not a killer, and he didn't want to do
the
it
one
in the first
time
place, and he
we
gets
saw
there
him
and
sent to
realizes
do a
he
murder
can't.
before, he wouldn't do it.
Right. But then Jay decides to take his own life because he's, I don't know, so ashamed or doesn't see a way out or whatever the case might be. We really don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you could argue, the parallel you could draw is that Jay is the glass ballerina or something, and Sun is responsible for him dying, and doesn't blame someone else, but it's really unclear how much who she blames and how much.
Right. Does she blame herself? Does she blame her father? Does some of her blame Jin, even though she knows it's really not his fault?
Right. And I don't think we know. All we get is that shot of her at his funeral, mourning, but mourning very privately, and then her father coming up and saying, you shouldn't be here. Go home to your husband, and leaning really hard on husband, right?
Yeah. Can I just interject to say that Mr. Paik is awful?
Oh, my goodness.
I
Awful dad's
wish
a theme in Lost?
I guess so. But he's just... I don't know. I almost wish they had developed him more, because he just seems like a... Sort of like I was saying with Danny Pickett, just a generically awful asshole character who's just there to be awful to people on occasion.
Right, like a real two-dimensional kind of villain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, okay, I'm glad. Thank you for explaining the glass ballerina to me. That actually makes a lot of sense.
That wasn't... I don't know if that's the proper explanation, but in thinking about it...
There is no proper explanation, but I like that one. I like that one. I thought it was interesting that you described the flashbacks as the meat of this episode. I actually thought there was a lot of interesting stuff happening this episode.
Well, there was, but I thought the story of the flashback I thought was really compelling and like complicated, which it isn't always. Like last week, for instance, it was compelling, but it wasn't complicated. It was.
I felt like also the Jin son on the island. I guess I appreciated that it gave Jin a chance to, like, get angry and frustrated and create some tension between the two of them, but it also wasn't totally unjustified and wasn't all his fault either, unlike some of the past Jin-Sun fighting storylines we've seen.
It wasn't the equivalent of, like, hey, button your top button. It was,
right.
Hey, I actually, like, don't treat me like I'm not here, or don't treat me like an idiot.
Right.
Like, I do understand.
And this is dangerous for us, and, we shouldn't be doing this, and, yeah.
Right.
And Sun also does lie to him, or tries to.
Well, yeah. She, effectively, when she confronts Saeed...
I'm fairly certain our friends have been captured. There are tracks all over the dock. They're fresh. As recent as yesterday.
You said this dock was abandoned.
That would be part of the lying you mentioned.
And Saeed readily admits that he's lying, which also doesn't seem like a super Saeed move.
No.
She basically, in that moment, gets to choose a side, and she chooses Saeed and says, I'm going to go along with this plan, and I'll help you lie to Jin. Whereas she could turn to Jin and say, hey, man, Saeed's trying to do this plan. I don't think it's a good idea. What do you think?
Right.
And she doesn't.
And I kind of don't know, I mean, I wish she had done that. I guess she trusts Saeed, and she doesn't want to feel like she's getting in the way of Saeed doing what he thinks is right. But it's kind of surprising to me that she goes along with it.
Right, and we should say that Saeed has never given anybody a reason to not trust him. Like, he has been...
That's true.
Super level-headed. All of his tactical choices seemingly have been right. I would also probably have trusted Saeed in that moment, just because...
Oh, yeah, me too.
A, because he's Saeed, but B, because he's brilliant at what he does.
Yeah.
Which, again, is what makes this so out of character. But
I think he's mad. I think he's, upset because he realizes the others have abducted his friends. I think he's gunning for vengeance.
Yeah, and he wanted, they had this plan that they'd worked pretty hard on, and they were thwarted.
Yeah, by fucking Michael.
Well, no, they figured out that Michael had betrayed them.
I know, but then he took them to a totally different place, which they didn't see coming.
Right.
Yeah, damn Michael.
Anyway. So.
I was surprisingly compelled by the Sawyer and Kate stuff this episode.
Huh.
Which, frankly, I didn't think I would be, because my memory of the whole Kate and Sawyer do manual labor subplot was that it was wholly negative. But I really liked it. I mean, I liked the scene between them talking at the cages quite a bit. I thought that was...
At the end?
Yeah, at the end. And, I thought the kiss was nice. Like, it was actually the first time they kissed, except for the time that Sawyer extorted one out of Kate.
Well, and this is not like a truly, purely motivated kiss either, right? Like, Sawyer seems to have done this to provoke the others in order to figure out what they can do.
Yes.
Like,
also true.
This is not just like pure Sawyer expression of feeling. This is calculated.
No.
Which is pretty funny, because everything Sawyer does kind of has two motivations, right? One is like his own pleasure and curiosity and satisfaction, and the other is strategic.
Right. Well, he is a con man.
He is, and he's a very good one.
Yeah. I thought that was fun to watch, and I don't know, I guess I was just thinking with that scene at the end, like, I don't know, it was the kind of scene that just, again, reminds me why I like Sawyer and Kate so much more than Jack and Kate.
Yeah.
Like, I know this is a little bit of a hobby horse, but...
I noticed something else, too. You taste like strawberries.
You taste like fish biscuits.
Like, that was more fun than I think any flirting dialogue between Jack and Kate on the whole show.
Yeah, and it surprisingly didn't feel cheesy.
And, like, Kate was, clearly impressed by how he, got the rifle and shocked them all, and I don't know,
I mean, the thing I really appreciate about Kate and Sawyer is that they really seem like a good team. Sawyer seems to, despite all of his, like, low-key sexist bullshit, like, does...
Sometimes high-key.
Yeah, but, like, does seem to appreciate Kate and, like, trust her judgment in situations like this. And, like, I think if that had broken differently and they'd had a chance to escape, they could have gone for it together and been potentially successful.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, I mean, it just, you know, Sawyer has his bullshit, but so does Jack. I mean, we talked about this last week with the flashback where Jack, you know, sort of goes stalkerish on his soon-to-be ex-wife. Yeah. And, I mean, and your point about how, you know, making a run for it and they could form a good team, it takes me back all the way to Exodus, the season 1 finale, where Kate's not supposed to have the dynamite in her pack, or is supposed to have it, and Jack takes it away. He doesn't want her. Like, I mean, Sawyer wouldn't have done that.
No, in part because Sawyer is self-interested, but also because
his attitude is she could handle it.
Right, and she drew the straw, and she's one of the team, and let her carry the dynamite.
Yeah.
And of course, like, the thing that keeps this part of the series really good, I think, is that they do a really, really good job of making the others seem very scary. Ben in particular, right? Like, at the very end of the episode, after you get this, like, very sweet exchange between Kate and Sawyer, and you're feeling good about our friendly castaways, and then it zooms out and the camera becomes a security camera, and Ben is sitting in front of this, like, panopticon, you know, watching activities on the whole island.
Yeah.
You know, it's really well done.
Just
to remind you, like, oh, be scared of these people.
Speaking of Ben, when he does his honest introduction to Jack, like, I'm finally going to honestly tell you who I am, he's still lying. He says he's been on the island his whole life. False. He says he was born there.
Yeah.
Just putting that, I guess that's kind of a hindsight, but just putting that out there.
That's okay, we can segue.
No, what? Anything else on your mind as you watch The Glass Ballerina?
I don't think so. On the whole, I really like this episode. I guess this is kind of a hindsight thing, but seeing what they've kind of done with the construction of this season, where in the first episode we dealt exclusively with the captives. Now we've, like, zoomed out just slightly and are also dealing with Saeed's party, which was part of the mission at the end of season 2, and knowing that in the next episode we're going to zoom out further and go back to our society on the beach. It builds really nicely, I think. But they don't make us go too long without finding out what's happened to John Locke and company. But at the same time, we're not bouncing back and forth between two more plot lines than we can handle.
This is true. I agree that I like that construction. I do think that even though these individual episodes, like, there's stuff in them that helps them hold up well, that when we get to the end of this first 6-episode arc, like, we're going to see really clearly what the flaws in it are.
Yeah.
Like, this whole thing that I don't know if this is what Ben was planning from the beginning, but you sort of see the threads now where it's building towards, you know, Kate and Sawyer are going to hook up and Jack's going to see them and he's going to do the surgery, and that's seemingly that's what Ben is trying to build here. Like, it's very convoluted.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, it's very clear that Ben, you know, I think it's clear to us in retrospect, knowing the characters and knowing what actually happens, that Ben could have gotten Jack to do this surgery on him through a variety of different ways than this weird Kate Sawyer-Jack triangle machination that he's got going on.
Right.
And it doesn't work because Jack then, you know, threatens to kill him on the operating table unless he gets what he wants. So it's not Ben's finest work.
No. Which,
so,
well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
We will. We will come to it in 4 weeks.
Yeah. Do you have anything in hindsight to reflect on?
Yes. This is our closing segment again, beginning of a new season for listeners who may be just tuning into the hatch. We like to end with what was different about this episode in hindsight. And something that really stood out to me was we get the first interaction between Sawyer and Juliet this episode.
Oh, yeah. Good call.
Yeah, and just sort of, knowing where they end up,
Right.
it's a pretty funny interaction. Sawyer refuses her offer of water and dumps it all on the ground, which very reminiscent of Jack with the food last week, the sort of same kind of stubbornness, which I appreciate seeing that parallel between them. But, he refuses the water, and then Juliet threatens to shoot Kate to get him to put the rifle down.
Right.
And it's so funny to me to watch that, knowing where they end up. And what was also funny was that when that was happening, I was thinking, wow, Juliet would never shoot Kate. Like, we know that. We know Juliet. She's not going to
But Sawyer's
put a
assessment
bullet
of the
in.
situation,
I
like
know.
when they're talking at the cages, is like, she would have killed you, no problem.
I know. It's so interesting. Like, that is Sawyer's first read of Juliet, was, she's a cold-blooded killer. Mm-hmm. Which I think is a poor read. I think Juliet's a good actor.
Yeah.
But that is the first time we see them together.
Good call.
So the interview?
Yeah. This will be part 2 of several from Jean Higgins, who was co-executive producer on Lost for the whole series. She was on the island in Hawaii. If you didn't hear her introduction last week, would highly recommend going back and listening to that. Wonderful woman with a vast repository of information and memories.
Very vast, and you'll hear her reference Jack at the beginning of this interview. That would be Jack Bender, who was the lead director of the show, and was sort of, they were working alongside each other to make things happen in Hawaii, so that just so you know who that is.
And we interviewed Jack Bender back in the very beginning of season 1. If you want to go back
This
and
is
listen
true.
to that, you're always welcome to.
And we managed to do, well, I mentioned earlier, we were a low-tech show.
Yeah, I was surprised when you said that.
We were a low-tech show because we were on an island which is the furthest from any landmass on the Earth. I don't know if anybody knows
Hawaii?
it.
No,
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So, goods and services, you had to learn to make do. So, we would adapt. And we would figure out ways to do things that were cheap and cheerful. And I don't mean cheap in a bad sense. I just mean it was early days. VFX have come so much further now. And the visual effects people we had were good, got better as we went on. If you look at the smoke monster, I think the smoke monster never worked.
Let's come back to that.
Yeah. We just didn't have enough money or time to do it really well. So what we would do is explosions were for real. We would augment them. But we would really blow things up. The fights on top of the cliff, they were up there.
You mean in the finale?
Oh, yeah.
When Jack and Locke are fighting on the...
They were on top of the cliff. I had cameramen in harnesses hung over the edge of the cliff. And I worked that schedule so that Jack was in Kualoa Ranch doing a scene. Second unit was on top of the cliff. And I needed to do some just general aerials as well. So I took the helicopter, I flew over, did Jack's scene, then we radioed ahead, came back around. We had the Elizabeth moored right at the edge of the cliff. So we came in over the Elizabeth's mast. We almost clipped.
The Elizabeth was Desmond's boat, as I recall. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Over the mast of the Elizabeth and up into the fight. And I would radio ahead and say, okay, hide. And the entire crew would hide in the bushes.
You really didn't think the smoke monster worked?
No, I always thought it could have been better.
How could it have been better? I asked that not as a skeptical question. I'm just curious what you mean.
We never had enough time because of the air dates, really, to really work the visual effects to make it as organic as it should have looked.
So you've told me about some of the crazy tricks you did. What are you most proud of from Lost in terms of things that you did?
This is really a JJ thing, but it became pervasive. Before Lost, you did not have a cast like that.
Hmm.
You had white shows. You had, the black sitcoms. You didn't have a multiracial, multinational cast. It completely changed the face of TV. And to me, that is the biggest issue. People take it as a given now. But before Lost, that never happened. Episode, I think it was 7, Damon sent us a script. I would say more than half of it was in Korean. We never thought the studio would let us do it, but we pushed for it. We did a show in Korean with subtitles for network TV, primetime. Never been done before.
Was there pushback from the network on that?
Not really. I
Interesting.
mean, Damon would know better.
Right.
I know there was a lot of discussion about it.
Yeah.
But by then, I mean, right off the bat, by episode 2, we were the biggest show in the world. And it was happening.
Yeah. Were you involved with the casting at all?
Not the original casting.
Okay.
The original group of survivors. But then as we went along, the first year we had a local casting director. I found that my extras casting lady was sending me more interesting and better people.
Interesting.
So I went to the studio and said, I want to change. I want to move this one. So I moved Rachel up. And I think Rachel is now the casting director over there. She's great. But she was getting us more interesting people.
Interesting. Who did she bring on?
All the day players and all the parts. And you have to think, you're an island. The entire population of Hawaii was like, what, 2 million?
Right.
So there's not a big pool of actors there.
So she was actually bringing the local people on the show.
She was the local casting director, yeah. And then what would happen is, as it went along, we would get scripts, and I would call up and go, why does the doctor have to be a man? And they go, oh, you're right. Let's make it a woman. And then I go, well, some other part, why does it have to be a white woman? Let's make it a black woman. Right? Or why can't this person be Chicano? Or Latino? Or, let's do something different here. This part should be an Asian.
Neat.
Oh, yeah, let's do that. Sometimes it would come from them. Sometimes it would come from us. It was a great give and take between me and Jack on the Hawaii side and Damon and Carlton on the LA side. And we often laughed that if we had all been together, it would have never worked because it was 4 personalities that were just too big. But because we were split by an ocean, it worked great. They would send us fabulous scripts, and they just go, make it.
To make sure I'm getting this right, so the 4-headed hydra that you're describing is you and Jack and Damon and Carlton? Mm-hmm. And so you and Jack were like the senior people on the ground in Hawaii, right? Like you were running.
Oh, Jack and I used to refer to each other as work wife and work husband. Yeah. And yet I will tell you, we spent so much time together, I think we would probably go to dinner once or twice a season. Because we see so much of each other. Each season, at the end of the season, we would go to dinner and say, so do you want to come back next year? And we'd look around and go, I don't know.
I can't believe you would seriously consider
every year
coming.
We did that.
Why?
Because
it was so much? Because it was crazy?
It was hard. I mean, it was great, but it was hard. And it would be like, well, there's nothing better out there. Let's come back. We would come back.
How does Lost compare to other things you've done in your career? Like, I know for a lot of fans, it's like the greatest thing that ever happened, but like how does it figure in the arc of your career personally, professionally?
Oh, I think it's probably the apex.
Yeah.
I really do. It's because it was so different and so innovative at the time and so right for its time. I mean, I look at things and go, okay, do I want to make this? Is it going to have legs, or do I want to make that? And to me, a lot of it has to do with the economy and what's going on in the world. When times are not so great, people want escapism. They want Lost. And when times are really, really good, go back and look. People want to look at people with problems because they don't really have them.
And Lost is escapism.
Lost was perfect for its time.
Yeah. Do you think how do you think it's aging, or how do you think it's going to age?
Oh, I think it ages well, because I remember Damon being absolutely terrified, and I say this my word, not his, about, okay, we did the pilot. The pilot's great. It works. how do you make a series out of people surviving? Because surviving is basically boring, right? And the minute he and JJ came up with flashbacks, I went, okay, this is great. We can go on forever. Because you can go back and delve into any character's history, personality, whatever. So I knew it was going to work. And then, of course, who knew he was going to do flash forwards, flash sideways?
Well, that's what I was thinking. I mean, to me, the show is so different. I mean, it's the same show, obviously, but once you start with the flash forwards and things start to get really crazy in the last couple of years with people coming to the island and time travel and a lot more explosions after that point, like, did it feel like to you like the show had changed, or did it, or not?
No, it just felt like it was evolving.
Okay.
It really did.
What, you know, I almost hesitate to ask this question because I don't want you to misinterpret my question, but I mean, the big thing among many fans of the show is people, you know, the ending is controversial. People argue about were there enough answers to questions. Personally, I'm in the camp that it was beautiful how it was done, and I don't need anything else with one or two small exceptions. I liked the finale. But I'm curious how you thought about that as you were making the show. Because it seems in retrospect like people have realized some people were watching a show because they loved the characters, and some people were watching the show because they like desperately needed to know who was on the other outrigger shooting at them in the, you know, flashes in season 5. Like, how did you think about that while you were making it on the show? Did you feel like there was a tension at all between those things?
In the finale?
No, just in general while you were making Lost.
Oh, no.
No.
It was in the beginning, the first probably 6. I knew we were making it up as we went. I mean, literally to the point that Jack and I would call up and say, hey, we found this great location. Let's figure out how to use it. To the very end, when it became, was basically purgatory. And that worked. And Michael Emerson didn't get to go because he still had things to work out. You know, so, yeah, it made sense.
Were there any places where you felt like you should have or could have, you know, told people more or not?
There was the season that we were stuck in the cages too long.
So that's where we're up to on the podcast, actually. So continue. What do you think about that?
I think it went on a little too long.
Yeah.
And I know there was a reason for it. It was, you know, I know the writers were trying to negotiate and they felt caged, and that's what kept coming out.
Right.
Man, Jean Higgins is the best.
She's super cool. I was pretty surprised that she didn't think the smoke monster looked good.
Yeah, that...
I don't know. What do you think? Agree, disagree?
I disagree. I think it looked great. I mean, I think... I wish they'd had a better name for it than Smoke Monster. Because that kind of made it seem way less scary than it was. But, like, in context, when it appears, I always found it really scary.
I did too. I guess we'll never know what it could have looked like if they'd had the time and money they wanted.
Right. But I thought it was like a perfect like island vapor thing terrorizing them, right? Like
I'm glad they called it Smoke Monster and not Island Vapor. The Island Vapor is coming.
But it was really scary. It was really supernatural. It was impossible to kill, right? It's not like it was a creature, or in the case of the Man in Black, like a person in human form. You know, it was... Yeah. It was... I thought it was creepy. I mean, I don't think it was, like, terrifying. But, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought it was fine.
Me too. We will have more from Jean next week as we talk about further instructions and we talk about Locke for the first time this season.
In the meantime, you can talk with us. We are at facebook.com/thehatchpodcast and on Twitter @thehatchpodcast. We also have a phone number you can call if you ever have a hot take that you want to leave with us. That is 9546-DHARMA, DHARMA.
Our fans know how to spell Dharma, Rosie.
Just in case. And that is...
But yes, if you call the number, leave a message, and we'll... it's an American number is what you're probably going to tell them, so +1. You can also send us a voicemail through Facebook Messenger if you can't call the number.
Our theme music is by Andy G. Cohen. Our cover art is by Danny Roth.
Please rate and review us on iTunes. It helps people find the show.
And we will talk to you next week.
Namaste.